Hello everyone, it's Shakes, and today I'm going to be going over how to get your Phoenix game to the next level. The thing is, Phoenix is undoubtedly one of the most powerful agents in Valorant, but so many people refuse to understand how to properly use him to his potential that in most cases he's underutilized by people who only see his abilities at face value. Unlike some of the other characters, each of his abilities has a ton of depth and variety of uses, and if you don't understand all your options as a Phoenix player, you'll be at a severe disadvantage. Some of what I've learned has been from my own personal experience playing him, but the majority of it has been from watching pros like TSM Drone and T1 Food play, as you can always trust pros to push characters to their absolute limit. I'm going to start off talking about concepts so you should understand as Phoenix overall, then I'll go into detail about how to use his Molly, Firewall, Flash, and Ultimate in the most effective and round-winning ways. Believe me, there's a lot you probably don't know about our favorite bird, so stay tuned for the most complex strategies that will arise as the video progresses. I'm Shakes, and this is how to play the Valorant Firefighter. Anyway, without wasting any more of your time, your job as Phoenix is to be the entry fragger. Your job is to be the one at the front of the pushes leading the charge onto site, hopefully getting a kill or two, then probably being the first one of your team to die if anything goes wrong, which it often does. Which leads me to my second point: as a Phoenix player, you should expect to die more than you would with other agents, simply because being the initiator, the one out first, you're probably going to be putting yourself into dangerous situations the most, and because of that end up having the most deaths tallied. Don't let this discourage you, because in reality being the first one out and simply getting your team the space to take a site is one of the most important roles you can play, if not the most important, and can single-handedly win you rounds. You'll need confidence in yourself and a team player attitude to play Phoenix properly, even if it seems like he's just another duelist. The issue with so many players in low elo is that they usually don't know how to push or don't have the confidence to, but with Phoenix your agent is specifically built to do just that. And again, on the same note as being the entry fragger, you should have pretty good aim. Out of all the agents in the game, I'd argue Phoenix is the most aim intensive, because you aren't just being the third one out watching behind, you're the first one out of the gate and it's your job to clear areas. You're often not going to know where the enemy is hiding, and these scenarios are the one where having good aim is absolutely essential. If you want to play Phoenix at a high level, you're definitely going to want to have precise aim. It's absolutely necessary that you practice in the firing range and or in deathmatch before you hop into competitive, because having your aim skills sharp is one of the most important factors in a Phoenix player playing well. With all that out of the way, let's get into Hot Hands, which is Phoenix's Molly ability. Hot Hands is your default E ability, which you automatically get every single round and can be used again within the same round if you use your ability and then get 2 kills. It lasts for 4 seconds and can heal you for 50 HP if you stand on it for the length of its duration, and damages enemies as well as your teammates. You get the point, it's a Molotov. The primary use of this ability is used to just kind of clear out places that enemies might be hiding in, for example throwing a fire towards the U-Haul so they couldn't peek out of it, or just to throw it where enemies might be pushing to slow them down. Enemies can hear when you use this, so keep this in mind as it could give away your location, or on the flip side, you can use it to trick an enemy into believing you're healing up somewhere when you're really just waiting for them to peek. If you want to get good at using your Molly effectively, you're going to want to have to understand its trajectory. The easiest way to do this is just to hop into a custom game with cheats, turn on infinite abilities, and practice throwing his Molly in situations where you might not have line of sight of where it's landing. Obviously, it's pretty easy to throw a Molly on an area 5 feet in front of you, but knowing its trajectory so you can properly throw it over Haven seaside barrier to cover long without having to expose yourself is a skill incredibly useful to really any Phoenix player. It's not necessary to know a bunch of lineups, but more so just to have a good understanding of how to throw it accurately. The reason I say this is because after a select amount of time in the air, it automatically drops downwards, which A, makes lineups more limited, and B, can allow you to more accurately throw them long distance if you know the timing. Moving on, the decision to use Hot Hands to fight versus to heal is one that I see a lot of players get wrong, and it all has to do with your priorities. If you're leading the push into sight with your entire team behind you, but you only have 22 HP left, it's still better to use your Molly to cover up areas where they may peek from, because if you were to heal yourself, you would be putting yourself and multiple teammates in danger for 50 extra HP. If you're the last one alive and pushing into sight on low health, it's better to use it to heal yourself, because you're the only chance your team has at winning the round, and mollying a spot where they may potentially peek will only solve a fraction of your problems. The point is, be conscious of the game state so you don't waste one of your better abilities and end up getting your team killed for it. His next ability, Blaze, is a firewall that you can purchase each round for 200 credits that heals you for 50 HP assuming you stand inside of it, that lasts for 8 seconds. The primary use of this wall is to be used as cover when crossing sightlines or to prevent enemies from pushing an area. Despite the fact that it does pretty decent damage if you actually stand inside of it, it still is a wall that you can completely cross through in less than a second, so it won't be very useful at preventing enemies from pushing through. What I mean is that just because you have a firewall up doesn't mean the enemies won't cross through, so make sure you're still watching for a push. The Blaze wall can be curved if you hold down mouse 1, then move your crosshair to whatever direction you want it bent towards. This is a pretty underutilized feature that I recommend to any serious Phoenix players to practice in a custom match to see exactly how to control it so you can bend it to the shapes you want. Because if you really understand how to bend it like a Brazilian soccer player in the 90s, you'll be able to open up so many opportunities for yourself, like making a protective wall around yourself while you plant, or single-handedly covering an entire sightline. As I said before, the wall heals for 50 HP, the same amount as hot hands, but it takes double the time to heal for the same amount of health, so only really use this to heal when absolutely necessary. Taking 8 seconds away to heal for half of your HP should be an endeavor only performed if you really need the health and don't have your molly available. You can use your blaze wall to cover you and your team crossing an area, as well as using it across the sideline without actually going across to fake repositioning. In other words, you can use it to fake rotations if you pretend you're using the wall to cross a sideline safely. The wall isn't just good cover defensively, but is also a great defensive tool as well when in conjunction with the curveball. It's super easy to flash through this firewall, and the colors of the firewall and the curveball are nearly identical, so it will be way harder for enemies to react to seeing the flashbang. We'll get into that a little bit more in the next part, but the bottom line is don't use the wall then immediately run across. I know where you're going and I'm gonna shoot you through it, and then you're gonna report me for walls, and then anyway, the next ability in Phoenix's arsenal is his most deadly, the Curveball. It's essentially a 200 credit flashbang with a limited range that you can choose to throw curving either left or right that can blind enemies for a maximum of 1.1 second. Keep that number in mind, it's going to be pretty important later on. Moving on, recently they actually changed how far the Curveball actually goes distance-wise, which gives enemies more time to react and makes it harder to follow up on your own flash, but despite this, it's still one of the most powerful entrying abilities in the game. While you can try to flash around a corner, then follow up and peek for yourself after it pops, you're still going to have to take out your weapon and peek, which, with how slow characters move in Valorant, isn't always the best use of your Curveball. If you want to get the most out of your Curveball, it's best to flash around a corner and have a teammate ready to peek just as the flash goes off to give the enemies the minimum amount of time to react. The general rule of thumb with this ability is that the more unpredictably you use it, the better, and the less time you give them to react, the higher your chances of success. The simple way to give them less time to react is to understand the distance the Curveball goes and just practice around with it in a custom match to see exactly how to get it to curve around a corner while not giving them very much time to react. The closer you are to a corner, the more time it will spend flying around the other side, which will give your opponent enough time to recognize the flash and look away, rendering it useless. Try to flash not directly around a corner, but more at an off angle, so if they're watching, they won't have very much time to turn away. So you know how to give them less time to react, but you don't know how you can make your curveballs more unpredictable. With your flash, you're going to want to make it a curveball so they don't expect it. Get it? Like a curveball? Sorry, I'll give up. Anyway, the first thing you can do is not just throw it around a corner at the normal angle, but throw it near the top of your screen or the bottom, which will make it a little bit harder for them to pick up and a tad bit more unpredictable. If you want to get really creative, you can even look directly up and curve it around over an obstacle, like I show here, but this strategy is definitely going to need a teammate to peek out with you for maximum benefit, but almost guarantees the enemies will be fully flashed. Another way to make sure your flashes are as unpredictable as possible is to do them through smokes or temporary walls like your own or Viper's. As I said before, your blaze wall is a fantastic place to throw your flash through because the colors of the wall and the curveball are nearly identical, and flashing through pretty much any smoke is not only unexpected, but a great way to push through an obstacle that has been placed to stop a rush. If you properly flash through an enemy's smoke, you're essentially using their own utility against them and giving yourself and your team an opportunity to take space. TSM, the highest ranked team in North America, are ranked so highly for many reasons, but one of them is definitely their dominance on Phoenix. They're one of the first teams to start flashing out through smokes often, and because of that, caught their opponents on the back foot. On the topic of high-level curveballs, if you want to be really skilled with it, you should probably subscribe to my channel because I make great Valorant content that's going to make you very skilled. Sorry, that was off topic, but it was a high-level curveball. I can just not take that. Sorry. On the topic of high-level curveballs, if you want to be really skilled with it, a lot of pro Phoenix players actually just flash into a sightline and directly follow behind it, flicking their view backwards as the flash pops and then back onto the enemy to give them more time to get the kill. If you want to practice this yourself, all you gotta do is, you guessed it, hop into a custom match and practice throwing flashes and being fast enough to flick your aim away and right back to where the enemies are to get the frag. As I said at the beginning, this is a pretty aim-intensive role, so if you can't control your mouse very well, you're going to have to practice being able to do 180s like you're going for a high score in Skate 3. Don't be afraid to use multiple flashes for the same angle if it's an important area to take, like you're just starting to push onto a site. Oftentimes it actually is worth it to double flash because it is unpredictable and will definitely assure that your enemies have either fallen back or have been fully blinded. This is done at the pro level quite a bit and is useful for even just scaring enemies into a more safe position. Also, be very smart about going for multiple frags off a single flash. If you know there are multiple enemies around a corner and want to flash them, I don't know you or your situation, I can't say exactly what you can handle. Maybe you're an immortal player playing at bronze 3 because of bad game sense, but what I can tell you is that the blinding effect only lasts 1.1 second at its max, so don't assume you have all the time in the world to hit your shots. I can't count how many times I've fully flashed 4 enemies just for me to get a single frag then die because, well, I suck, yes maybe, but also because a flash really doesn't last too long and is pretty situational. With all that in mind about the curveball, always expect when peeking that they have full vision, because they could always have just peeked behind a corner or flick their aim away in time, so never let your guard down. Yeah, I just spent nearly 4 minutes talking about how to use a flashbang in Valorant, so you can tell I don't have much of a life. Anyway, Phoenix's last ability, his ultimate Run It Back, is pretty much one of the best ultimates in the game. It allows you to place a marker somewhere, then for the next 10 seconds, if you die or the time runs out, you will automatically teleport back to the marker. It might not seem that crazy, but especially in higher levels, it can be absolutely game-changing. Now, this is for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it only costs 6 ult points. You might say that that's not that big of a deal, but him being a duelist is generally going to guarantee more frags, on top of his healing ability, which will allow him to survive longer into rounds, and you get a character that gets his ultimate quite often. Now, just getting an ultimate a lot doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be very useful. I mean, I get Reyna's ult like 3 times per half, but rarely get more than 1 kill with it. Side note, that might be because I can't control any kind of fast recoil if my life depended on it, but the point is, it's incredibly powerful at both fragging and getting information. What I mean is that because you have an extra 100 HP meat shield leading the charge, you and your team can safely push a site, assuming they're a safe distance back, just because the enemies will have to make a decision. Whenever you hear an enemy Phoenix say,
"Joke's over! You're dead!"
you have 2 options. Take the aim duel, which is not a great idea because assuming you're equally skilled, it's a 50-50 chance that you win or die, and even if you do win, your position is revealed, and you didn't even actually get a single frag. Or on the flip side, you could retreat to a safer position, giving the enemy team ground. It's a lose-lose situation when you're up against an ulting Phoenix, which just makes Run It Back easily one of the safest and most effective ways at taking space. Make sure that when you are ulting though, you are still checking all corners, because especially when you're ulted, enemies who are hiding in good spots will usually just not fire at a Phoenix if they don't have to, which will give your team a false sense of security to push, and can lead to them getting pretty much wiped because you didn't check one corner. Despite this, make sure you use it as often as possible in conjunction with your team, just so the space you take isn't just immediately taken back by your opponents once you fade away. Another thing to keep in mind is that it always heals you up to 100 HP, even if you started with less, so in desperate times you can kind of use it as a makeshift sage heal. Always make sure that the marker you place is in a safe position that can't immediately be rushed or targeted, because I've seen way too many people simply sneak behind an ulting Phoenix body and knife him because he didn't keep it in a smarter spot. Also, please keep in mind the timing of the round when using his ultimate in a retake. There's way too many times where Phoenixes fail a clutch, not because they're bad or because they didn't get the kill, but because they couldn't finish defusing in time before their body faded away. And with all that, you should be a pretty darn good Phoenix. Or at least one that's better than you were a few minutes ago. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, you know what to click, but if you have amnesia, all you have to do is like the video, subscribe the video, share the video, advertise the video, and most importantly, comment on the video about what you think of climate change. It's been Shakes, and I bid you many clean one-taps to your name. Peace.